Good morning, everyone. I hope everybody's having a great week so far and looking forward to a great weekend. I wanted to start off today's presentation by just kind of having a short discussion here regarding communication and communication with your broker. I have found when I transferred from production type business to management broker type business, one of the biggest learning curves for me in the very beginning was I was used to the way I did things, and I had control of my transactions, and I communicated well, and I had very few problems from start to finish when I was doing my transactions. So when I became a manager, when I became a broker, what I discovered was there are a lot of potential problems and pitfalls. So it took a short period of time, but there's a learning curve to doing what we as brokers do. And the advantage that we have as brokers is that we get an overall snapshot of our business and how it operates and the potential problems that can arise out of a situation. So the point I'm bringing up here, I guess the point I'm trying to get to here is communicate with your broker. I don't care if it's a problem you already have that's on its way, or if you're getting ready to submit an offer that if you have the seller and the offer's coming in, how to present that to your seller, how to do a buyer presentation, how to deal with issues potentially that could come up with the buyer or for the buyer that you need to be aware of, and how to handle it so it doesn't become a problem. So, using your broker, whether it's Jeff Green, Omar Hellman, Mary Jane Morris, and myself, call us and brainstorm. Say, hey Tom, I've got this issue, and I'm going to be presenting it today at 8:00 tonight to my client. How, based on, have you seen this before? How would you suggest I handle it? It doesn't mean that the answer I'm going to give you or any of the other brokers are going to give you will satisfy you. We're all different. We all present our business differently, but at least you're getting input. And we may come across something or present something to you that you hadn't thought about, and you like the idea, and you would take that information, that input, and lay it out in your own format and present it to your client. So again, the purpose of this just short discussion that I'm having is for you to please call your broker. There's a lot of things that can come up in a transaction. And if you call your broker and just to brainstorm with them, discuss an issue potentially coming up, ask for help in interpreting an offer that came in. That happened to me this morning. One of my agents sent me an email and said, hey, would you read page 2, item 6 of the RPA and tell me what you think? How do you interpret what's being said here? So, I read it, I interpreted it, I sent her an email back, and now she and I are going back and forth on discussions on it, and she's going to be presenting the offer tonight at 7:00 to her client. So, so I'm not done with that issue yet. I'm sure she and I are going to be communicating at least once more, if not twice more, before the end of the day. But, the whole point is, I, as a broker, appreciate her reaching out to me and with this discussion type item, because that way I'm presenting to her important points that I believe are needed in a situation like this, and we should, that she should be presenting to her seller to talk about the pros of the offer as well as the cons of the offer, not only as she sees it, but also as the broker sees it. And when you do present that to your client, keep in mind that, you can talk about, hey, listen, I've read this. This is my interpretation. In fact, I wanted to get more input, so I did call my broker and had a discussion with my broker, and this was my broker's input. So, all of that type of input helps your client come to a good decision, and it's their decision. Don't make any mistake about it. It's not our decision. It's the seller's decision whether to accept that offer or counter it or reject it. But at least they're making that decision based on solid information coming from different points of view. So that's what I have to say about that. Please communicate with your brokers at all. If you just want to call and say hi, that's great too. But at least, keep keep the communication flows. It's so vitally important in a real estate transaction to keep everybody informed and to keep the communication flowing. So your clients will be satisfied with that. They'll be happy with that. And that's a good reflection on you and potentially your future business. So today I want to talk a little bit about extension of time addendum. And, a lot of times when we get towards the end of an escrow, there's a delay. And in that delay, what I see, unfortunately, is a lot of the time there is there's no addressing it in the transaction by way of paperwork. So you have an escrow supposed to close on the 15th of the month. It's now the 15th or later, and you've had a phone conversation with the other agent. There's kind of a verbal agreement out there, but the bottom line is paperwork doesn't get changed. And so if there's going to be a delay, for example, in the escrow closing time, do an extension of time. The problem with not doing it is that technically and legally you're not in compliance with the RPA. And even though you feel you have a verbal meeting of the minds carry no weight in a court of law. So you need to make sure you have paperwork documenting your position, your agreement, and signed by both parties. That way, if a dispute does arise out of the delay, at least your client's protected because you have a signed agreement and extension of time for that reason. Likewise, if you have a listing and you're going to change the price on it, do a modification of terms. That way, you're being covered, not only covering your client so they're on top of it, that way they have a copy of the paperwork that you've presented to them, but also you have the protection of having a modification of terms in your file, so that if the seller says, that agent you never presented that to me, you can bring out the paper and say, yeah, we did discuss it. Here's the modification of terms. You agreed to it. You signed it. Withdrawal of an offer. This is important from the point of view that you have the seller, for example, and an offer comes in. Your seller looks at the offer and does a counter offer, and you send that counter offer off to the buyer. Then a brand new, while all of that is going on and taking place, a new offer comes in that's substantially better than the offer you countered. In fact, it's better than your counter offer. How do you handle that? How do you get out of that? There is a CAR form, withdrawal of offer, and it's CAR form WOO, and it's revised in 406. And if that buyer who sent the offer in accepts the counter offer, you have a deal. You can't get out of it at that point. They've signed it. They've sent it back to you. Even if they haven't sent it back to you, by virtue of the fact that they signed it and you've been given notice because it's been sent to you, then you have a deal. If the buyer has yet to accept your offer, immediately fill out a withdrawal of offer, complete it, have your seller sign it, and get it over to the buyer's agent. That will officially withdraw the counter offer, and you can consider, and your client can consider, the new offer that came in. So again, paperwork, communication. Once you send off a counter offer, it's always advisable to tell your client, to your seller, hey, listen, once I send this off, if as soon as they accept it, we have a deal. If they counter it, or if they walk away, then you don't have a deal. But if they sign it and send it back to us, once they do that, we have a deal. If another offer comes in the interim, then we'll have to see what the status is of this counter offer, whether the other party has signed it or not. So again, withdrawal of an offer, if you're going to do that, get it off promptly. If you've already received your seller's counter offer accepted by the buyer, don't send it out because you already have a deal and you can't sell the same property twice. I've seen it happen before, so don't do it. Not a good idea. Page 10 of the RPA. when you're getting down to page 10, a couple of items here. One, always have the buyer sign, or initial, I should say, the bottom of page 10 of the RPA. I guess if there's one thing I do an RPA as incomplete, it's because that last page at the bottom is not initialed by the buyer. The other point I want to bring out regarding page 10 is when you fill out the real estate broker's information. So many agents just sign their name, and they'll put in their California DRE number, and they'll put in the broker DRE number. But they don't put in the broker's address, they don't put in the broker's phone number, and that all needs to be a part of the completed package. So please, when you're filling out page 10 and you're signing that page 10 as the agent, the selling agent, or even as the listing agent, make sure your name is on there, your DRE numbers, the broker DRE numbers, the broker's address, whatever address you're using. If you have any questions on that, please contact your local broker, and they can advise you as to what address to use if you have a question about it. So that takes care of that. Fixtures versus personal property. I had this come up this week, so that's why I just want to kind of touch base lightly on it and quickly on it, and that is to say, if you can pick an item up and move it to a moving van, it's personal property. If it's attached, whether it's a cabinet, whether it's a wall bracket for a mounted TV, not the TV, but the bracket, that is a fixture. If you have to unscrew it, unbolt it, unglue it, whatever the case might be, that's personal property. And a fixture, again, is fixed to the property. You cannot easily pick it up and just carry it away. So rule of thumb is, if you can pick it up and carry it away, it's a personal property. If it's bolted to the wall or attached to the home in any way, it's personal. No, it's a fixture. I'm sorry. It's a fixture. And so please always follow the rule on that. If you're going to make any item either included or excluded in the sale of the property, make sure it's written out in the agreement, both the listing side as well as the purchase side. And if an offer comes in on a property and that exception is not put in there, always counter back and make sure it's clear, it's in writing, the item you're talking about, and whether or not it's included or excluded. So that's what I have for today. I hope all of you have a great week. I look forward to talking to you. If anybody has any questions about anything presented here, please give me a call or give your broker a call. Have a great week.